Hey everyone, welcome to the Drone to 1K podcast. I am your host and founder of Drone Launch Academy, David Young. Welcome back. If you've been a regular listener, I have been gone gone from the podcast for about a month or maybe two to bring it back. So I got COVID, a month or two ago. So that knocked me out for probably a good 2 or 3 weeks. And then by that point, we were behind with other projects. Like we were working on a new drone mapping and 3D modeling course. We were in the middle of getting that worked out. We were improving some of our other courses and doing some other promos and launches. So the podcast got pushed back just because we were behind on everything because I got COVID. So I'm back. We have 3 episodes left to round out season 4. Very excited to bring them to you. If you haven't been listening to the podcast before, what we do is we interview guests who have their own drone service business, making a broad range of amounts of money. The minimum criteria to be on the show is to be making at least $1,000 a month. We usually ask people to make $1,000 a month for a few months in a row so we can see some consistency. And we have people all the way up to making, 5-figure months or 6-figure plus years. So a lot of different perspectives on the show. And I love diving into people's stories, hearing what they're up to. I learn a lot, and we make a lot of great connections that way and hopefully bring you a lot of valuable information. If you are enjoying the podcast, a way to get a free t-shirt is if you go to Apple Podcasts and you leave a review for us there, letting us know what you think, your honest feedback, if you like it, if you don't like it, let us know, and then screenshot that, email it to me, david@dronelaunchacademy.com. Please also put Jorge@dronelaunchacademy.com on there, and we will send you a free t-shirt as a thank you for leaving that review. So if you listen to the podcast a lot, you may already know that. You may already have a free t-shirt, so thanks for doing that. Another way we can help you out in your drone journey, we have a couple courses on our site that are typically around $50, but we're going to be giving them to you for $1 a piece. Just use the promo code podcast to get $1. So that is the Drones 101 course, the Mini 2 Mastery course, the Mavic Mini 101 course, and soon we will have the Drone Business Foundations course. That's a $100 course, but we'll probably give it to podcast listeners for $1. That basically walks you through everything you need to know before starting your drone business, including walking you through step-by-step how to make a complete drone business plan for yourself, how to know how to evaluate which niche you might want to go into, all the mindset stuff, just all the best practices from what we've learned on the podcast and in my experience from interviewing tons and tons of different drone business owners. So be on the lookout for that. That is a part of our Drone Business Mastery program, which is a set of 5 different courses helping people launch and scale successful drone businesses. We used to call that program Drone to 1K, but people were getting confused with the podcast, and they were also like, well, why would I join a course if I can only make $1,000? And we're like, no, well, we want you to make at least $1,000. People are making a lot more than that, so we changed it to Drone Business Mastery. Since it was so much, we split it up into individual programs because some people were saying, well, I already have a drone business, but I really like to get the Google Ads part of the course. So people were asking for little pieces of the course. So we just split it up into what makes sense, allowed people to purchase the courses individually or as a whole. So that's a good update on where we are Drone Launch Academy wise. We should have our new mapping course coming out, hopefully here in the next month or two. We've been filming it. We were filming it last week. We'll be doing more filming next week. So be on the lookout for that. It might take a little longer because we're trying to add more and more to it to make it really good and like really good, highly produced with animations and all that good stuff. So one might take a little bit longer because I want to make sure we get it right to make it like the best possible mapping course that could possibly be out there. Because there's a recent stat out that showed 2021, the drone service businesses that were making the most money, the number one niche for 100K plus drone businesses was in the mapping space. So we want to make sure you guys have the best and highest skills you can have for your drone service business if you're thinking about starting one. All right, without further ado, we have with us today on the podcast Patrick Whalen of Backstage Aerial. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a story about him flying a drone extremely close to Justin Bieber's face. He flies for concerts. He has flown for Netflix, for Amazon, done a lot of stuff. COVID actually killed his existing business that he was in, which was more of the events and touring business. Then he got into drones, and he hustled and hustled. He went from 0 to 6 figures in just 12 months. So I'm really excited to bring you his story and how he did that. Hopefully you find it beneficial. So let's dive in. All right, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today with me I have Patrick Whalen from Backstage Aerial on the podcast. Thanks for joining me, Patrick.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad we're rounding out season 4 here of the podcast. You are actually indoors in a nice looking quiet room. I'm outside on a deck. If you're watching the video, you can see trees behind me. But if you're not, so if you hear like a random bird chirping or something, it's probably me. So apologies. I was telling Patrick that we're on a little short trip here to North Carolina, and I've got 4 children sleeping inside, so I don't have my normal quiet studio. So I figured out here on the deck was probably the best I was going to get. So anyways, Patrick, thanks for joining us. Why don't you start off, tell us a little bit about who you are and just kind of how you started getting into drones.
Sure. So I have been in the entertainment business all my adult life, whether it's film, TV, but mostly live concerts and tours. I've been a production manager and a vendor of concert support equipment for years. And we were getting into some of the best years or the best season we were ever going to have in 2020. And then COVID hit, like
Mm,
everybody.
not the
Um,
best for live events, huh?
no, not the best for live events. And I had always had a passion for remote control cars and RC planes and, a little bit of drones, some of the cheaper ones, which I've donated to trees in the Pacific Ocean. Um, but I always wanted to, learn a little bit more. And so I think the first week of COVID, I was like, well, I'm going to buy a upgraded drone and learn, how to fly and then how to make it a little bit more so I can use it for filming my own stuff. And immediately got hooked and was flying at the RC park literally every day. I had a
Mm,
Phantom 3 Standard I bought off of eBay,
okay,
and I think I upgraded like a month later to the Phantom 4 Pro and started doing some real estate videos. Got my 107,
cool.
and then just became a sponge on the internet, much like watching some of your videos and watching everybody else's videos, and they all started kind of some of the stuff contradicted each other, some of it kind of molded together, and you're like, got it. And mainly, like we're you know, drone launch really came in for us or for me was the settings, like, because I didn't know, all the tricks and the trades of the settings. I knew how to get video cameras and film cameras to work the way I wanted them, but DJI has different language and different settings that sometimes are a little goofy and you kind of like scratch your head and just, having some sort of resource that was reliable that I could go to and use that became valuable for me.
Awesome. Now,
Um,
assuming did you do the aerial video A to Z course, that one by Alex Harris?
yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
And there were some parts of it that I'd skipped over, but other parts of it, like that were really important to me. And it was mainly the filming tricks. I had a little bit of Adobe Premiere Pro editing, and so I was kind of going and having to relearn that. And I mean, in 6 months, I literally taught myself how to fly a drone, how to make it more cinematic and not just do the spin around that everybody does and post
Right,
on
right.
YouTube. And then the biggest mountain was just the FAA rules and regulations, and
Mm,
especially being in Los Angeles,
mm-hmm.
there's so many more because it's Class B airspace most of the city and then over the ocean. So it became a little bit trickier to do, some of the
Sure.
projects, but I've gotten away, worked around it now. But I think the biggest thing for me was that, you know, taking a leap and jumping into it and making it my full-time business where I have to get supported financially by it was, I mean, just terrifying to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. And I kept going and practicing flying every day, even though it was a Phantom. I know that sounds crazy, but it wasn't really the flight part. It was the camera movement and the gimbal
Yeah.
and just having those things working in unison together, because I knew what the shots were that were bad on YouTube, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't replicating those. And so it was just practice
Yeah.
and muscle memory. And 6 months later, I started doing some film work for Live Nation. And I was asked, because in the past I'd worked with them on the music side, they had asked me for some drone work, and they said, "We have one problem though." And I said, "What is it?" And they said, "You have to have $10 million of liability insurance to fly a drone on any Live Nation property." And I looked at them and I said, "Give me 1 hour, I'll call you back." And called my insurance
One
agent
hour.
up, and I said, what if I need $10 million of insurance in the next 24 hours? He said, you can have it in the next 48 hours, but you're going to fall over when I give you the bill for it. And I said,
Uh-oh.
well, this is what the clients want, and this is what I have to do. So let's do it. And once again, it's a risk that I was willing to take to further my business, and I did it. We shot a Hyundai commercial for them and a drive-through, and
Was that through Live Nation as well?
Yep. And then after that, we became a preferred vendor for Hyundai, and bought my first Inspire 2 with an X7 and a 16 millimeter lens, and that became my daily flying. It, like, people go to the gym, I would go to the RC park from 7 to 9 in the morning every day. And to this day, I still 3 days a week go to the RC park. I'm flying FPV drones for that, just to get better as a pilot and get my skills better. And I really enjoy it. It's FPV flying to me is like golf. It's, you never are going to be done. There's always going to be room for improvement. And I've crashed a few in my day.
I bet.
But I mean, it's just taking the risk and trusting in yourself, and, and just practicing. And that's brought us to today. So we've now done since April 24th, 2020.
Okay.
I've worked for Amazon, Justin Bieber, Live Nation, Hyundai, Red Bull. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, Netflix. So, I've been pretty lucky that I've got to transition and really build this into a business pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And did you mention, so what level, I mean, you went from 0 to like a bunch of clients. So, I mean, do you mind sharing with us like ballpark, like revenue figures that you hit for your year, or like your run rate maybe?
Yeah. So, I'll give you a ballpark. In the first year, every single drone was paid for. I had no debt, and I cleared 6 figures.
Wow.
From
that's awesome.
April 24th to 12/31 of 2020 with COVID. Wow. So it's possible. And it's, it was nothing other than hard work. And I have to say this, I am not the best drone pilot in the world. I'm not the best camera operator in the world. I have a great camera operator now that does all my Inspire. And now we're moving into, just got our Komodo, and we're having a bigger heavy lift drone built right now.
Cool.
But it has to do with networking and really getting off your butt. You could be the best pilot in the world. Your reel could be amazing. But if you're not going out and pounding the pavement and using tools that you have and people that the business isn't going to go anywhere. And I know a lot of people that have spent way more money on drones than I have and have lost a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a hustle.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. So if you're listening to this, I mean, you've heard over and over again, people say, very similar to what you said, Patrick, like, hey, I'm not the best drone pilot in the world. Like, yeah, you're good. I can tell, obviously you've practiced and you put a lot of, you take pride in being good and trying to be the best you can. Right. But you could be awesome. But if you didn't have contacts and a network and those things, it would mean nothing, basically. Right. So,
yeah. And I think that goes, I mean, it's for any business, really.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
We all read the Facebook posts and all these, drone for hire groups. And it's like, just got my 107 license, I'm ready to work. And it's always kind of interesting to read the responses, because it usually is going to be like, so am I, me too. Yeah. Welcome to the club, wrong website for this, or wrong group for this. But I mean, it's kind of how things go. It's, people expect that they get their 107 and the phone is going to just blow up and ring off the hook.
Right.
And I think it's really important that, you understand that the only way you're going to separate yourself from the other 200 or 500 competitors of yours that have 107s and some sort of drone or quad is how you're going to handle the clients and getting out there and putting them, in front of their faces. And I did take a couple of examples of doing some drone real estate work for free. Like, I'd call real estate agents up and, having been in business and an entrepreneur, the last thing you ever want to do is give anything away for free. But I did it for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to see the interaction between the client and myself, like how are these guys going to react? Because this is going to prepare me for possibly working with a director or a DP. And the other thing I wanted to see is, what do they expect? Like, what are they going to really look for, and how much input are they going to have? And I did probably 5 or 6 of those videos for free. And I'm really glad I did. One, because if I messed up, I could just
Right.
be like,
Not much pressure.
here's your free video. And
Yeah.
you know, I was teaching myself color grading at the time. So, you know, I should, one of these days I'm going to watch the first video again. It's pretty bad. Like,
Hey,
but
but it's always going to be bad though, you know?
yeah, but I mean, it was a learning curve, and that's where you got to jump in with both feet, and you know, swallow your pride for a second and just go do it, because you need the experience of not only flying the drone and flying and filming whatever the subject is, whether it's a person or a building or something, but you also have to have that experience of how are you going to interact with the client while you're flying? What are you going to do to make their lives a little bit easier, or what questions are you going to ask? There were things that I just didn't even expect. Like, you know, I quickly realized that there's nothing worse than the client sitting over your shoulder trying to look at your screen while you're flying. There's hands down the worst thing in the world, because you can feel their breath on your neck, and you know, and they're like, oh, and they're trying to, you know, what about go right there, and and it's like, so I immediately bought like a little $300 monitor with a, you know, HDMI cable that was like 14 feet long, and another tripod, so I would get them away from me, and they loved that.
Because they can watch what you're doing.
Thing. And they sit there and they're glued to the screen, and they're quiet. They're watching. They're like, this is the coolest thing. And I'm like,
yeah.
And then I can go, what do you think of this shot? Should we try it this way? And now we're using my expertise as a drone pilot and a camera operator, and asking questions intelligently, and they're making judgments based on what my questions are. And that all came from very quick experience doing real estate videos. I'm not saying that it's for everybody, but even if it's, you know, surveying, or if you're going to do some line inspections or whatever, I think doing a couple of them for free or at a massive discount just to get the gig and understand how to do, I mean, there's a whole process. Like, I have an operating procedure just for me before I even give it to any of the staff we bring in, of I need to make sure that the contract's been sent. I need to check the FAA. I need to update all my logbooks. I carry TFRs and NOTAMs with me at all times printed. So if we get stopped by the FAA, we have everything in hand. Like, those are basic things that I've learned through different courses, just to make sure that before we even fly, we're compliant and being, I guess, a responsible drone owner operator.
Yeah, and you're just covering all your bases and make sure that you're safe. Yeah.
But that experience of working with somebody was the best money spent. And and it really, because there were a couple of them that, you know, real estate agents are, I hate to pick on you guys, but it's a great example, because they have an idea of what they want, and sometimes they don't know how to articulate it, and they think that when you show up, it's going to take 10 minutes and you're going to have these amazing views, and then you leave and then they can go work on the next house, where that's not how it works. You know, it's going to take a couple of times and a couple of shots that you need to do, and you're dealing with all kinds of different egos and levels. And so it's a really good, I guess, free education for learning how to deal with clients.
Yeah. No, I love that. Now I want to go back a little bit and too dive in. I feel like you went quickly through your whole like 0 to 6. No, it's fine. It's good. It's good to get like a good overview of the full picture of like where you've been. Right now, I want to kind of pick apart some pieces.
Absolutely.
So you've been in, you said, kind of like the live event space for a while, right? As doing production and different things like that.
Yep.
So it sounds like you maybe had some relationships from when you worked in that industry. You know, when COVID hit, you were saying, hey, what made you be like, hey, I'm gonna make drones my full-time thing? Was it that COVID hit and there was no work for you that used to exist?
You know, really what it was, the drone interest all of a sudden became for just my own personal use and hobby of flying it around boats and stuff on the Pacific Ocean, and had no real thought about turning it into into a business. But I loved flying so much that I was like, I could see myself doing this more often. And I had a friend that was heavily involved in drones from a recreational standpoint through the Drone Racing League. And
Mm.
I'm like, I want to get a really good drone that I can crash and it won't be a big deal. And he's like, well, get a DJI product, whatever you're going to do, start with that. And because I was buying the cheaper ones, like I said.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe a month after I had been flying pretty regularly, I was like, okay, I want to get my pilot's license so I can see if I can make some money. And
Yeah.
I had planned on just doing real estate. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was going to be my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I mean, having worked in the entertainment industry for so long and having done TV shows and film shoots with different artists and all that, I started kind of at a 7 on the scale of 1 to 10. I'm not, that's no lie. I mean, I had that Rolodex.
Well, I mean, I think everybody's, everybody's got something that they've worked in. Maybe they've worked in some industry. Now, sure, maybe some are more conducive to others, but
Yep.
everybody knows somebody. And if you don't, you can always get to know people, right? Too. So
Yep.
that's one thing we try to tell people is like, listen, just think about what your past experience is, and can you apply drones in any way to the people that you already know and the industries that you're already familiar with and things like that. So, I mean, even if you knew all those people, you still could have totally dropped the ball on the opportunity. I mean, it's not like it just landed in your lap,
Oh no, and I mean, everybody's got a sphere of influence.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
got your circle of friends, and we often forget, and who we know, and we usually know a lot more people than we think. And so
Hmm.
I very quickly became the social media, I guess, um, bot. Like I literally just my personal pages. I made Backstage Aerial LinkedIn page. I made a Backstage Aerial Twitter page, and just started blowing up. And even if I wasn't shooting, or showing content, it was like, got this new drone, take a picture of it, and just constantly keeping in the mix. And built a website through GoDaddy. None of the stuff I did, I mean, because I had money for the drones, but when you spend that money and you're still building the business, that's kind of
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
you become the head of marketing too for your company.
Hmm.
And that's the crucial part, is everybody within a month, and people that I hadn't talked to in years knew I was flying drones for a living and knew about
Mm.
this business,
Mm.
only for the simple fact of I just blew it up. And I would hashtag DJI and filming and drones and real estate, and just constantly focusing on building the business. And so it was fly in the morning, come back, sit down from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. and just call people, network, building the business. And so it's a lot of hard work, but that's how you separate yourself away from the competition, because you're right. Everybody is wanting to vie for these same jobs, but they're just like, they'll post it on Facebook, like, hey, available in Indiana, Mavic 2 Pro, or Mavic Air, or Phantom 4, but that's it.
Right. Right.
And you've got to have a little bit of level of personality to come in and start making a little bit of wave in the industry. And especially if you're going to work in an industry like real estate, like surveying, or like film, it's pretty saturated. But this is still, in my book, a very new and in a industry that's in its infancy still. It's still evolving. It's evolving fast, but I think there's a lot of room for a lot of people to come in and make a really good living.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I feel like a lot of people you hear a lot of times saying, "Oh, this industry is It seems like when someone uses the word saturated, it's like people are just throw their hands up, like, "Oh, it's saturated. Like, I just can't. I can't make any money." It's like, well, there's a lot of dentists in the world. You know what I mean? Dentists don't
Yeah.
go, "Well, the market's saturated. I just, I can't make any money being a dentist." It's like, well, dentists do their own marketing, and you can have dentists that just set up shop and sit there and no one ever comes in, or you can have dentists who go to every local business and say, hey, offer your customers a free cleaning at my place or whatever. Every business where you can make money, someone could say, oh, it's just saturated. There's a lot of bookkeepers in the world. There's a ton of even something like photography used to be just regular ground
Yeah.
photography, right? Let's say that used to be a little bit more specialized because you had to know how to operate the cameras, things like that. Now everybody's got a cell phone, and I still have friends who do weddings and they do photos, videos, and they make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, even though it's a so-called super saturated. Everybody sitting at that wedding is a quote photographer because they have a phone in their pocket. But I just feel like that's such a, I don't know. I get a little frustrated. It feels a little bit like a cop out when
No,
some people are like, "Oh, the market's saturated. I just can't do anything," because they talk to 5 people, and those 5 people they talked to weren't interested, and so they go, "Oh, the market's saturated, so there's nothing I can do." You
well,
know what I mean?
it's an easy answer. I'll tell you this. As much as I was picking on the real estate agents because of the different personalities, real estate agents are a great case study for how to start a business,
Hmm.
because real estate agents, everybody knows a real estate agent. You can't throw a rock and not hit a real estate agent in a group of people. That's just that's saturated.
Yeah.
And those guys hustle because they're all independent, they're running their own business, and they're all banging at the doors, they're sending out mailers, they're making phone calls. If you ever talk to a real estate agent in a casual dinner and they find out you don't have an agent, even if you're not looking to buy a house, they're your new best friend.
Hmm.
And it's very similar to that in any business, but the drone industry especially, because people tend to not know what they're looking at when they're watching a drone video. They see it go
Hmm.
up and they're like, wow, that's really cool. They're not looking at the lighting. They're not looking at the drone. They're not looking at the footage and how fast you're going or how slow. Are you dialing in? Are you jibbing? Or what the technical side of it is. They just think it's cool because they're seeing something from the air.
Hmm.
That's what they're cool. And so now what becomes the most important is how you sell yourself and how you sell your business and how you sell your services. We are not by any means the cheapest company. And I do turn down projects because I don't want to take the cheap lowball gigs. And those are fine. But I have a van now, I have insurance, I have employees. My expenses went up. And so I have to make sure that whatever, as soon as we leave, we're making money and we're not losing money.
Yep.
So the focus then becomes on the owner of the business and what services are you going to offer? What is your expertise? And I'll tell you, before all of that, personality goes much further. If you
Hmm.
can be polite, if you can be kind, if you can be understanding that these people don't know what they're looking for, it's your job to convey it to them through all your training and all of the education you've had, how you're going to relay and articulate it into a way that they can understand it, because they're not going to understand your technical terms, but they will understand the shot that they're looking for. Or you can ask questions and go, I think I know what you need. Why don't we
Hmm.
shoot it over here this way, and we'll come across and we'll sweep over the property, or we'll do this quadrant of the surveying first, or we'll check this pull first and then we'll come back. Does that make sense to you? And put it back as a question. Now they're engaged with you, and that shows a service. The worst thing you can do is go, I know what I'm doing. I got my 107, got my fancy vest on. This is the way we're going to shoot it. And no, don't tell me I know what I'm doing. And I've watched a pilot do that. He didn't even know I was a drone pilot.
Hmm.
And he told the client how he was going to film it. And the client was like, that's not what we want. We want it more, the facade. And then we want the sun behind the drone. I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And so there's a lot of parts and moving pieces to any of these companies, whether it's drones or anything else. But I think a lot of it gets forgotten as we start up, because we're so hungry to make that money that we forget that we have to be personable and we have to be nice. And we're selling us first, then we're selling the drones, and then we're selling the services.
Yep. Now, I think that's all awesome advice, and it's so true. I'm curious, people are always, one of the biggest things that we get asked is, all right, similar to what you said, I've got my 107, I'm practicing, trying to build my business. Like, what's the best way for me to go out and find clients? And so I'm curious for you, when you were going from, it sounds like you did a little bit of real estate, but you transitioned over to the live event space. How did that happen? And how did you get the clients in the live event space, or more on the film side, I would call it,
Yeah.
versus doing real estate? Or do you still do real estate?
I don't do real estate. I did that as a training for
Mm-hmm.
me, like I said, and it was really to see how, what kind of shots. And once I felt comfortable doing the real estate, and I did some land surveying and some roof. I think I did one roof inspection,
Okay.
which I was still pretty new at flying, and we had like, I think there was a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind that was
Oh boy.
gusting. So all the video like came out. So I wound up redoing it again for free. And so once I got comfortable flying, and once I got comfortable with figuring out my shot list and making and doing a little bit more pre-site work before I got on site. I would kind of figure out, what are they looking for? How do I want to shoot this? And starting to ask the right questions as far as what the client's end needs are. Then I felt comfortable enough to start calling my friends up and people I knew in the industry and said, I'm flying drones now. I know there's not a lot of events going on, but if you ever need anything, let me know. And one of my people I hadn't talked to in 10 years said, you are a genius. And I said, how does that work? And he said, you found an industry where you don't have to be by anybody. This is brilliant. He's like, I wish I would have thought of this. He's like, you can do all these film projects and you don't have to be by the film crew. You could be on the other side of a field. And for COVID compliance for us, this is great. Yes, we have a project for you. It's a live event and we know you can't fly over people. Come down to the site and let me know what you think. And there was an alleyway and an open lot behind the site. So there becomes my flight path. So I didn't need to go we did ask the FAA and they were like, don't bother us. This is fine. You do whatever you want. Just don't fly over people. And that's how we got around it. And so the problem was that they had this group, they wanted to have a drone footage, but you wanted some aerial imaging. And the solution was, we're going to rely on Backstage Aerial to come up with and tell us how we can do this legally. And immediately, I was fresh out of 107. So I was like, oh, I know we can fly here. There's no people and there's this dirt lot. And we turned this product in and we shot it for them. And I think I shot it on my Phantom 4.
Yeah. Cool.
And, once again, the difference was that I charged a lot for it. And they paid it. And it was only for the simple fact of I took the time to go do a site visit. So that was a fee. I took some time to write up, our shot list. And so I charged them for pre-production for that. So there's other ways to make money other than flying the drones. And I'm not a great editor. So I went and found an editor on one of the Facebook groups that does film and said, hey, look, I've got some projects. Can you figure out a rate for me? And let's cut a rate either by the minute. And then we'll figure out how many revisions we're going to allow for that rate. And that's what we did. And so we're on our third project right now.
Awesome.
And so it's all pretty new.
Yeah. So it's all pretty new, but what about all the other projects that you've done for Live Nation, all that stuff? How did you get into all that? Or was that a Live Nation project? No. So Live Nation,
from a production management standpoint, has been in mind for a long time. So, they knew me as a person, they knew me as a business person, and they knew my work ethic, and then also my attention to the detail on the safety issues, which was big for them. So, when the Hyundai drive-through experience happened, we were the only ones that would, give them the $10 million insurance policy. And they didn't want to see a reel or anything. And I was shocked. I'm like, okay,
wow,
this is great. I mean, I only have like 3 other things that I could show you, but, they trusted me and they trusted the work we were going to do. And up to that, I think I had 2 weeks to prepare or before we were going to shoot. So I would spend, I don't know, probably 6 hours at the RC park every day, just practicing shots and really honing in my skills as a pilot, because with the Phantom, you're in a lot of the smaller drones, you're the camera operator and you're the pilot. So there's a lot going on to think about. And so I had a couple extra visual observers because it was a big area that we were in. So I think we had 4 visual observers just so they could see the corners and I could fly around to, closer to objects, and we all were on radios. And we just practiced over and over how we were going to shoot it. And then when I went to the actual event, I already had my shot list laid out. I knew what I wanted to get, how I wanted to get it, where I was going to be. I knew where the sun was going to be in relationship to the way that we were working. So all of the film, elements and education I had learned either online or, just through experience in my short time became a great asset in my arsenal of tricks for getting what the client wanted.
Yeah. Now, how did this for the Live Nation thing? Did you just call them up and say, "Hey, I'm doing just similar to how you did with your other friend," and say, "Hey, I'm
Yeah,
doing drone
I mean,
stuff now, and do you need anything?" Or
I took a acquaintance I had from Live Nation and friend, and took them out to lunch and told them what I was doing, and and they said, well, we have very strict rules of what we need, and I said I will follow those, and then that's when the insurance came up, and it's appealing to what the client's demands are, and that's the most important thing, and so I was willing to spend a little extra money on the front end, but I knew that it would pay off years down the road, that I automatically turned around and got the insurance they needed, filled out all the paperwork that they need, which was a lot, and you know uh it was just a relationship that I had rekindled. And there are many more like that. I mean, every Amazon is the one that was kind of a raw one. That was a cold call in, but they had heard of me through another friend, another
mm-hmm.
DP had recommended. So, when you start doing projects with people, the best advice I could give you is when you're getting done and you're wrapping up, instead of saying goodbye, say thank you very much for the business. I would appreciate it if you ever hear of anybody else needing drones, please give them my name and number, my cell number, my email. I would really appreciate that. And then follow it up again with, after this, when in a couple of weeks we should go to lunch or something. There's an investment in clients that we forget about, and they are your best source of advertisement over the any Google ads or Facebook ads or anything. Word of mouth is great, because those people are the ones that will help promote your business faster than anybody. And that's what I did, is I would, when we would do a shoot, I would say thank you very much, love to grab lunch with you sometime when we have time, and if anybody else needs any drones or any other kind of filming, please give me a call. And that is what has been sort of our catalyst for pushing our business forward, is that we've really pushed as hard as we could to get new clients.
Yeah.
And just by word of mouth.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I was going to go back to something you said too earlier.
Yeah.
I'm remembering back when you said, you're like, yeah, I'm not the best editor, so I went out and found one and, agreed on a rate. I think that's something else that I wanted to just remind people of. I hear all the time, regardless of what industry it is, like, oh, well, I'm not good at editing. Or I hear people on the mapping side saying, oh, well, I'm not a licensed surveyor, so I can't do this. Or, they find reasons why, oh, there's a requirement with this job, therefore I can't do it, rather than thinking of, oh, who do I know that's a surveyor that I can partner with, and they can sign off on it and I can fly the drone, we can work together. Because, there's, if anybody's heard Root Patel on our podcast, that's an example he gave. But it's the same thing, but on kind of like the film side right here. You said, hey, I'm not the best editor, but I found someone who is good and I brought them in. And where you're creating value is you have a relationship where you've built trust with them, and then you're able to see the pieces and go out there and say, okay, here's what we need. And you're putting it together. And, in this instance, you flew the drone, but you hypothetically probably could have even hired a drone pilot to do it, and you could have still made money on it, because there's value in being able to provide like an end product for that customer, whether it's you're bringing in an editor or a visual observer, whoever you need on the team to get that done, and the insurance and all that stuff, right? You're the one taking the risk and who knows how to put the pieces together. And that's where there's a lot of value. That's why I tell people, like, you can fly jobs for drone base or whatever, but if you want to practice, but like the value proposition of just getting up there, taking a couple pictures and coming back down is pretty small, because anybody with a drone who can follow instructions can do that. Where you create the value is when you go to the RC park for 6 hours and practice the shots over and over again to get really good, and come organized with checklists, and people, and you're able to network. Like, that's the stuff that's going to be able to create a lot more value. And I just loved hearing that from you.
I think one of the benefits I found with Drone Launch is just having references where I can go through sections. Like, if I get stuck on a shot or there's something I'm not really sure of, I'll go back and kind of watch what Alex was saying. And I really love having that ability to go back and use references. And I think that sometimes we get too complacent, because we're, after the first month or 2 or 3, you've watched Drone Launch, you've watched all the, all the YouTube videos you want to watch. you go, I got it. And, I'm still learning. I am still watching as many videos on filming. I watch camera videos now on different camera settings in different ways. And it may not even be related to drones, but I'm constantly trying to get that knowledge and learn more so I can be a better pilot. I can be a better camera operator, and I can be better at the client services side, which is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I think we've been going for about 40 minutes now,
Oh,
um, but I do want to get your advice. Let's say, you've been given a lot of advice throughout the podcast, but if you were talking to someone new and they're like, oh, I want to do something in either, live events or film or TV or even just kind of general video production. And I'm trying to break in, I'm discouraged. Kind of what advice would you give them, that has helped you?
uh, do some free shots. I mean, go do some projects for free, because there's no money involved, so the stress is going to be less. You may build a relationship that, if you're doing somebody that's a student, and they're a DP or a director, and they're going through film school and they need a drone shot, go do it for free. It doesn't hurt you.
Mhm.
And that's a relationship you may carry with, and you never know who the next director is going to be that'll break. And maybe it's that guy or that girl. And you're going to have this relationship that you started with them from day one. And people don't forget that. Don't get discouraged. It's okay to admit that you don't know everything, because I sure don't. But don't try and snow people. It will get you in big trouble.
Mhm.
And don't agree to everything. There's a lot of shoots that people want done, and they're like, well, we've got 4 other bids and you're saying you won't do it. And I'm like, it's Class B airspace, it's next to LAX. I would have to get authorizations, I'd have to get a waiver. I can't do it until we get all that in place. And they're like, well, the shoot's tomorrow, we're going to go with the other guy. Don't
Mhm.
take those jobs,
Mhm.
because the fines will outweigh what any kind of money, and the damage to your license certification will be far greater than any kind of money you'll have in the future from that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but just keep working at it hard. I mean,
Yeah.
you get in, you gotta really dig in and push hard. I mean, if you don't want to work at it, you're not going to get much back.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think you've given tons of good advice, and I think my biggest takeaway, for hopefully for the people listening to this is, you just have gotten out there and you just were committed to it, right? It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna dabble and I might call a couple people. You're like, no, from this time to this time, I was working at it. I was calling people. I like how you said everybody that knew who I was knew that I was starting a business flying drones. You said that one relationship that got you a job was a relationship from 10 years ago where you called
Yeah.
them up. Yeah. So I think, if people are willing to put in that level of, hey, I'm just going to call people and let people know what I'm doing. Awareness, I feel like, is almost half the battle. Where if, when someone comes to a situation where like they're going to need your service, you need to be able to pop in their head. And if you haven't talked to them ever, or in the last 10 years, or they don't know you're doing drone business or whatever, it's not going to happen. And maybe a Facebook post here and there will help, but that's not going to be enough. You gotta go more boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when COVID strikes and that's your only source of income. How focused you become.
Yeah, it's kind of like you did have to. Desperation was almost a little bit your friend there to force
It
you
really
to get
was.
it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I'm sure it wasn't pleasant in the moment, the stress of it, but it sounds like it's enabled you to build an awesome business that you have now.
Yes, and I'm very thankful for it, and I really do enjoy it. I love every day of being in this industry, and I still enjoy flying the drones, even if they're not FPV quads. The Inspires and the Phantoms are still a blast to me, even flying them almost daily.
Awesome. Well, Patrick, I wish you the best success. I hope we keep in touch, and thank you
We
so
will.
so much for coming on and sharing all your insights and your journey with everyone. I know everybody's gonna really appreciate you sharing what you did.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for having me on. And go watch all the videos. Don't just skim them up.
Thanks, Patrick. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Patrick Whalen. Again, I always love diving into people's stories, hearing how they're overcoming challenges, overcoming obstacles. It really just shows me that a lot of what comes down to being successful in a drone service business is being able to go out there, be creative, and honestly, there's just some hustle involved when you get down to it. the people that I see who are really successful versus the people I see who aren't quite cutting it or not really getting jobs, they're usually just lacking that initiative factor of just, hey, you know what? I'm going to get out there. I'm going to work an hour a day. I'm going to focus. I'm going to really put myself out there, make some contacts, and make it happen, versus just kind of floating around and putting things off and just not really taking action. When I dive into why people aren't doing well, I'll have drone pilots come to me and say, hey, David, I'm just not able to get clients. And then I really drill into what they're doing. And I say, they're in some of our courses that help people get clients. And so I'll say, okay, well, in this one lesson, we teach you how to go talk to realtors and do this presentation. Have you gone out and have you tried that and given that presentation? Well, no, I'm thinking about it. And, I really wanted to get this together first. And I wanted to do that first. And they haven't actually gone out and implemented anything or taken any action, yet they're disappointed at the results. So if you're listening to this and you listen to this podcast, just know, hey, a lot of your success relies on taking action, taking an initiative, and just getting out there, even if it's uncomfortable. So just wanted to encourage you with that. Reminder for the free t-shirt, if you take the time to leave us a review, we'll send you that as a thank you. Again, remember, if you want to check out any of our courses, just go to dronelaunchacademy.com. There's a courses tab. They're all listed there. Feel free to check any of them out. I also listed some discounts during the intro, so if you can go back and catch that and give some promo codes out there. One last thing, we have another game, the Two Truths and a Lie game. So if you want to win some more prizes and you've listened to this podcast, there is a link either in the YouTube video, below the YouTube video, or in the email that this was announced in, the podcast was announced. If you click that, you answer one question for us, you will be in the running to win one of 3 or 4 prizes. We give away hats, t-shirts, mugs. Actually, it's a mug very similar to this that I have here if you're watching my YouTube video right now, and a free course. So go answer that. You can win some of that swag, and you have to do it before we release the next podcast. So do that this week. It's our reward to early podcast listeners. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be back next week. We have 2 more episodes after this in season 4, and then we will be filming and recording for season 5 to bring that to you. So very excited. Thank you all again so much for listening. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.